All right, welcome to our lesson today. This is the first part of our body composition and weight management lesson for your Fitness for Life class. So thank you for tuning in. This is the first of what will be a few different segments. The goal will be for you to learn a little bit about body composition and what that means, and also how to, in a healthy way, manage your body weight, which is an important part of your personal health. So you can see me over here in the corner. I'm your online lecturer, so to speak. And remember that you'll also have an actual course instructor that will be assigned to you for the course when you take this course. So as you have questions that you might run into as you go through this lesson or any other lessons, as always, feel free to reach out to your online instructor with any questions that you have or anything that you want explained even further. But this should hopefully give you a good introduction to body composition and some of the things that apply to body composition. So let's go ahead and get right into this. First of all, what is body composition? Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Body composition is just basically the things that your body is made of, right? It's anything from, you've probably heard at some point in your life that, a high percentage of your body weight is actually just water weight, which is true. But there's also other parts of your body that are a part of what we call your body composition. You have bone material, you have muscle material, you have blood, you have other tissues, you have body fat. And so when we talk about body composition and weight management, we're going to be talking about a little bit of all of those, because it's important to have a healthy amount of all those things in your body. But we specifically focus a little bit more on what like a healthy body fat level is for people. And we also hopefully will dispel a few myths that exist as well as we get into this. The objective for this lesson is, first of all, to help you understand the various components of body composition. Some of those I've already talked about. We want to discuss how body fat percentage is related to overall health. And there is a correlation. There's a range where there's a correlation. We're going to talk about healthy and unhealthy levels of body fat, especially for high school students, as well as what those look like later in life as you guys get into your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, what that looks like. We're going to describe some methods of assessing body fat and discuss some pros and cons of each method. We're going to understand some health hazards with being overweight and introduced to eating disorders. So the learning goal here is that students will learn weight management strategies, the value in maintaining a healthy body weight, and be able to perform various body fat assessments. Okay. So why do we want to learn this? A person who understands the importance of body composition will be able to assess their own level of body fat, that's helpful to be able to do. It'll help you understand health hazards and accompany obesity. It'll help you gain knowledge of body fat measurement techniques. It'll also help you use techniques in healthy weight loss. So let's get into this. One of the first things you got to understand when we get into this is, is body fat a bad thing, right? A lot of times you'll see people thinking, it's bad to have body fat. The reality is body fat is actually an important part of your body composition. You have to have body fat for your body to function in a healthy way. And so part of what we want to do with this lesson is help you understand that body fat is actually a healthy thing to have. But when you get above a certain percentage, you can start to increase certain health risks. Okay, so we're going to get into a little bit of the science of it and what the data suggests. But there is something about obesity that does kind of lend itself to having higher risk for certain diseases, right? And as well as contributing to some other challenges. So understanding what obesity is important. Obesity is having a very high amount of body fat in relation to lean body mass. Or you'll hear us talk about like a body mass index of 30 or higher. So we'll introduce what the body mass index is. Body mass index is basically, it's like a coefficient. It's kind of something that we calculate based on height and a person's weight to kind of figure out what their body mass index number is. All right. So when we think about body mass index, you'll typically see a chart like this. This is actually kind of a standard chart published by the National Institute of Health. If you go over here and you say, okay, let's say I'm 66 inches tall. Okay, if I were 66 inches tall and I weighed 118 pounds, or about 118 pounds, my body mass index would be 19. Okay, you can see right there. If, however, I was 66 inches tall and let's say I weighed 186 pounds, that is where my body mass index would be about 30. Okay, so you can take a snapshot of this chart if you want to be able to kind of look where you would be. But remember, this is height in inches, and then this is weight in pounds. Okay, and then your body mass index number is this number up here. You need to know how to do that. There's an activity later in this course where you'll be able to kind of figure out what your body mass index is for you. So make sure you're familiar with this chart as well as how to use it. One of the challenges, let me just go back to this. One of the challenges, body mass index is a nice measurement tool because it gives us an idea of what a person's body mass index might be, what their body fat might be. But the reality is the body mass index, while a good tool and a very quick method, it has its limitations for sure. There's much, much better ways to assess how much body fat a person has. For example, body type. A lot of people have different body types. There will be people who, if you're 66 inches tall, for example, and let's say you weigh 173 pounds, you might be a person who's 66 inches tall and weighs 173, but you have a very high muscle and bone density. So if you're just very thick and very solidly built, you might have you might be at a 28 body mass index, but in reality, your body fat percentage might actually be a lot lower than what that indicates if you have a lot of lean body mass, if you have a lot of muscle. So while this is a nice tool, it's not the best measurement tool by far, but it does kind of give us a good general idea typically of where we're at. So obesity is majorly on the rise. If you haven't heard this, it's such a big concern for a lot of people in our country today because data shows that obesity is majorly on the rise in the United States and in some other parts of the world as well. So I'm going to take you through a few graphs and show you kind of what that's looking like. The below slides indicate the rise of obesity within the United States from 1985 to 2009. Each U.S. state indicates a BMI level of 30 or greater, or individuals who are at least 30 pounds overweight in that particular state. BMI levels range from 0, where there's no data, to no greater than 30% in certain states. And just remember, obesity is having a body mass index rating of 30 or higher. Okay, that just means you're overweight. Obesity is talking about being probably an unhealthy level of body fat percentage. So in 1985, it kind of looked like this. You can see down here. That these darker colors of blue indicate 10 to 14% body fat, and this would be less than 10%. And this is just no data. But as we go, I'm just going to actually do this really fast. Just watch how gradually this data, little by little, changes. So now we're looking at the 15 to 19%. We're even seeing some greater than or equal to 20% in some of those states. Part of this, obviously, is, we're getting more and more data that helps us get a better snapshot, a better picture of what it actually looks like. But you can see here that there's actually, even by 2007, 2008, we're seeing 30% or higher body fat on the rise. Okay, so that's 2010, 2011. Now we're looking at even greater than 35%. So if you look at this over the years, 1990 compared to 2000 compared to 2010, we see that there's been definitely an increase in levels of obesity in our country. So some people might say, well, why is that? What's going on? That's kind of the natural question at this point. Let's just look at a few more statistics here. In America, 60.1 adults are overweight or obese. So overweight just means that they're not quite to that 30 BMI number yet, but they're approaching it. Okay, so 60.1% of adults are overweight or obese, and 23.4% are obese. And I think that's actually a little higher now since this statistic was taken. In Utah, we're just slightly below that, but still pretty close. 58.4% of adults are overweight or obese, and 21% are actually obese. Okay, that's a 103% increase nationally in the past 14 years. So if you look at this chart here, this kind of just furthers the point. The percent of adults who are overweight or obese. All right, so you can kind of see like some of these states. It looks like Colorado is a little bit lower than Utah, for example, on that. Utah's kind of sitting at that like 21.8% of people are obese. Okay. So how does that affect? Let's talk about how this affects like our lives. Okay. So we're talking about like, well, why does this matter? Why does this matter to me? Should I care about my body fat? Is it a big deal? And one of the things that I really hope that you take away from this lesson and any lessons that we do about body composition is this: there are all different types of body types. Okay. And one of the biggest things that I certainly promote and that I know other teachers promote is, to love the skin you're in, to love you for how you're built. Not everybody's built the same way, and you are what you are. And it's important to develop and be happy with and take advantage of what you are, what you genetically have been given. And, and sometimes, people get really obsessed with this thing about like, is it really bad to be fat? The reality is you can be an amazingly healthy person and be overweight. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Okay. But statistically, this is where I think talking about this actually really, really matters. People who are overweight have shorter lifespans by average. Now, you always might know of the exception, but by the numbers, people who are overweight live fewer years than people who are not overweight. People who are obese tend to live even fewer years than those who are overweight. And so that is part of why we're talking about this. We want you to be armed with the information that you need in your life to understand that, hey, if I want to have a long, healthy life, how do I give myself the best chances to have good health, to have a long lifespan, to be able to do the things that I want to do throughout my life? And so understanding what a healthy body weight is this is what that whole discussion is geared towards. Okay. So you can see here in this chart, the US average for life expectancy is 79.8 years. Okay. For females. For males, it's 74.4 years. So males were just a little bit behind females in life expectancy. If you're overweight, you can see that this drops. Females, it drops by about 3 years, a little bit more than 3 years. And then being obese as a female, it drops even more than that. Okay. And then being overweight for males, same thing, drops by about 3 years and then about another 4 years or so if you're obese. So if you look at this, just the average life expectancy for men versus that of men who are obese, I mean, you're almost a decade shorter in your lifespan. So I personally think that's a huge reason to be discussing this. This is obviously a big reason why we're discussing it so much at a national level. One of the discussions with this is it's not just adults. We're actually seeing a huge rise in obesity in children as well. And the fact that children are seeing obesity at earlier and earlier ages, obviously indicates that we need to discuss this even sooner, and hopefully at a much more effective level, so that this word gets out. We can help people figure out what the problem is and how to make some corrections. One of the big issues with being overweight or being obese is it definitely increases risk of diabetes and other diseases. So when you look at your U.S. mean of life expectancy and those who become diabetic before age 50, This is a huge reduction of life expectancy as well. So over 12 years, uh, 12 fewer years to live, if on average, for diabetics than those who don't have diabetes. And being overweight or being obese definitely increases the risk of having diabetes. So the whole point of this is to help you start to understand how to assess what your body fat level is, and then how to, over time, gradually start making changes if you do need to decrease the amount of unhealthy body fat that you might have. Okay, and understand that you do have a lot of control over the ability to lose excessive body fat. So we need to understand a few things. You need to understand what body composition is. You need to understand what lean muscle mass is, and then fat mass. So when we talk about body composition, as I said before, is the makeup of body tissue. So it includes muscle tissue, bone tissue, body fat, and all other body tissues. So that's just your body composition, what your body is made of. Okay. Lean body mass is talking about, it's the non-fat tissue. So such as muscle tissue, bone tissue, skin tissue, your organs, your ligaments, your tendons. This is typically, your lean body mass is typically going to be anywhere from 75 to 80% of our weight. That's kind of on average, okay, for both male and female. And then fat mass is the amount of fat in your body. So this is about 15 to 25% of our weight on average. When we talk about obesity, again, this is, having excessive amounts of body fat to where it's like at unhealthily high levels. So that's going to be higher than 35% for women or higher than 30% body fat for men. So what should your body fat percentage be? For men, essential body fat makes up about 3 to 5% of total body weight. Like, you have to have body fat. And even if you were at 5%, that's extremely lean. So like some of the most well-conditioned athletes in the world, elite triathletes, marathon runners, things like that, you're going to see kind of those levels of body fat in people like that. Most people who you'd consider to be fit and healthy are actually higher than that. Like typically, anywhere from like 10 to even 12, 13% would be average for a lot of men. And then for women, it would be even higher than that. So a lot of times women, might look at this and say, well, 25%, well, that sounds like a lot of body fat. The reality is for a woman, that's actually, that's more in the range of healthy. And so don't get too caught up on like these percentages. Again, everybody's body is built differently. That's why it's such a big range. When we say something like 10 to 20%, that gives you an idea that there's no like magic number. The point is that's kind of where we're looking at for what's probably the range that a healthy person is typically in. Okay. Always room for a little bit of variation there. Body fat in women tend to have more of body fat than men, about 5% more. By nature, a woman's body is developed to protect her and a potential fetus. As a result, women have more enzymes for storing fat and fewer enzymes for burning fat. Additionally, the estrogen women have activates fat-storing enzymes and causes them to multiply. The minimum percent body fat considered safe for good health is 12 to 14%. For females. That's the minimum. Okay? So keep that in mind. The average adult body fat is closer to 22 to 25% for women. Factors that influence body fatness, there's a lot of things that play into that. First of all, heredity. For sure, there's a genetic component to that. Metabolism. People have different metabolisms. Some people burn calories just a lot more readily than other people. Might be, that can depend on a lot of different components in your body and how your body works. Diet and high sugar intake, that definitely can influence the amount of body fat you have. Lack of physical activity, that's something that contributes to it. Early fatness, which is when we talk about that, we're talking about the last month of fetal development or first year of life. And then lifestyle. TV, watching too much TV or having too much screen time can contribute to that as well. About 38.2% of Utah public high school students watch 3 or more hours of television per day on an average school day. When we talk about TV, we're talking like screen time. For you, it might even be higher than that, especially where cell phones are more prevalent than when this study actually came out. That's a lot of time, right? That's a lot of time. We're going to conclude this first part of this lecture here. So make sure that you have completed any study guide or notes that you were required to do as part of this assignment. Make sure you study the material well. Make sure you understand the terms we went through, and then when you feel like you've understood and you understand these concepts that we've talked about in this part of the lecture, go on and take the quiz or anything else that's required with this, and we'll see you at the next lecture.